it could be working. I'm not sure if it is going to work. It's supposed to go live at 9:05, but I think it's gone live a bit earlier. So, hello everyone. I'm hoping the sound is working okay on this. I'm going to know in a second because I'm going to start turning on my laptop. And hopefully, that's going to work as well down here. And everything's going to work fine and I'm going to know what's going on. But I don't know at the moment because, well, I've got that camera, so it's pointing this way, because that's a better camera. And I'm supposed to be joined by young Master Dan in a second. Let's hope he does, because it'd be far nicer if there's two of us here. So I'm going to go to Discord quickly, get that working. And once I've got that working, I can do that. And I can also go to my own channel, view channel, open link in new tab. Not in new slot, new thing, completely in new tab would do quite happily. And apparently I am live. I'll make sure I'm muted so I don't hear myself. And then I can see the live chat. Hello. How are we all doing? So this is a bit different and should be joined by Dan in a bit if he can find me down here. If he can find me down here. Now, how is everyone doing today? How are we all? I'm going to make sure Discord is started up. Yes, it is. And basically what we're going to do is put the pages into half. That sounds good. And I'm going to go to Naval History Live. And I'm going to go to Bruships Q&A. And I'm going to put Bruships 157 Gothenburg. And hopefully I can spell it right. Hopefully he says he can spell it right. Did I spell it right in the first start of the thing? Possibly didn't. I will fix that later. So, how is everyone doing today? How are we all? Hello from Stockholm, and specifically from the Viking Balkan, which is an absolutely gorgeous place to be staying. It is gorgeous. I've been having a wonderful time here. I truly have been. Not necessarily the best in terms of reception, because they don't have any staff on reception, but in terms of food, in terms of cleanliness, in terms of kindness of the people here, and in terms of the fact that I am, well, I did consider doing this from the deck, but it's a bit windy up there. So I'm doing this from down below. And yeah, I've been having a fun day. It's been a lot of fun today. The Maritime Museum was gorgeous, they really are. And yeah, hello everyone. Let's pop out the chat so I can see the chat separately. Timestamps. Hello Team Locker, hello Scottish Nerd, hello Senecanero, hello Tanakoka, hello John Shay, hello everyone who's here. So, how are we all doing today? How is everyone? Are you having fun? Fresh from sauna. Ooh, that sounds nice. I keep threatening them. With the idea of a sauna. So far, none. It hasn't happened. But yeah, it's something I keep threatening. What was the highlight of the Scandinavia trip so far? Okay, so I would say in terms of museums, it's got to be between the Narvik War Museum and the Maritime. They're just gorgeous museums. Different reasons, but gorgeous museums. The Narvik War Museum is amazing. It is truly something special, and truly something which you have to see to believe. The amount of content they have there, the amount of skill they have on show there, the amount of stuff they have. Ah yes, I've been joined by that. Oh, he's found the appropriate shirt, hasn't he?
I might have done.
Your seat's waiting for you.
Thank you.
It's just, you know, the question I'm answering is what is the highlight of the trip so far? And I'm saying for me, it's the Narvik War Museum and it's the Maritime Museum. It's because the Smaland, and you do not realise how much is there, okay? If you're looking at its websites, if you're looking at the content around Gothenburg, if you're just doing a search for Maritime Museum or Naval Museum in Gothenburg, you will not be shown half of what is there. And I mean, they've got a project there which we are dearly basically bending over going to get involved with, to try and get involved in, because they want to put a turret back on their monitor. And that is
or is the gun position on
the gun position of
so
that.
like a fixed gun. It evolved, it changed.
It changed over time. I think they want to get the monitor with the slight angle turret on it. And we would love to support that and get involved in that.
And they have a gorgeous submarine with an 8-shot rotating.
Yeah, it could have technically 4 torpedoes loaded, and it has technically 8 in the gondola. But if you didn't notice, there was actually a 9th position.
Yes.
In the centre of it.
And there was room to fully retract to have a full-length torpedo out the back as well. So you could have had.
You could have had 9 and 4 loaded, so you could be.
No, but then you could also have more in racks behind that.
Yeah. You could have more.
You could have a lot of torpedo.
You can do.
And given that she's relatively short range, you don't need that much fuel.
No, you don't. I think we're being joined by someone else.
Well,
we are. This man's been very tired today, and actually didn't manage to make it to the museum because of that. I'll bring your chair in.
Yeah. I'm fine. Being offered chocolate, full of burger. This was one of the other lovely things, was people came along today and they told us about the burger place they recommended.
And that was lovely.
That was good. That was really good. That was called Dine, or Dine. D-I-N-E with a French type accent, which I don't think is a Swedish thing.
No, but it's nice. It's really nice. We had really good food. Last night's food was also gorgeous, but let's put it this way. I spent roughly 50 quid on books today, which I shouldn't have. And I spent almost that amount on food last night, because last night's food, which you didn't realise, because what they do is they have the price of the meat per 100 grams, and then they're slicing the brisket in front of you, and it just looks gorgeous. It just looks gorgeous. So the highlight of the trip from museums to me has been the Narvik War Museum and Malmö. What about for you two? What's the highlight of the trip so far?
I mean, there've been those two. There's so I've been to the Stockholm Army Museum. That was fantastic. They have a great section in it where they go, taking war trophies is bad, you really shouldn't do it. And then the next thing is, here is the first of many rooms filled with mostly the battle standards we captured from Russians in Poland. And then here is another room of them. And here is another room of them. And another one. And these are big rooms, and these are big. So that was good. And the Maritime Museum there is good.
Yes.
Not only because they have amazing model kind of collection, but they also have their museum ships. which their
Your audio
website
is low.
uh,
I don't know
I
why.
get that.
The audio should not be low.
Yeah, they have museum ships which their webpage says are still shut, which are completely free and are fabulous.
Especially the icebreaker.
Yeah, so they currently have an icebreaker called the St. Eric.
Well, the audio is going across the mobile phone, so
Yeah,
I don't know why it would be low.
so there's the St. Eric, whose hull plating and spacing and things makes your average battleship look poorly kind of held together. And you have a light ship, and there is currently a minesweeper patrol
Let me
boat
see what I
from
can
the
do.
Veterans Flotilla moored alongside. Yeah, so it's
Is that
awesome.
more central? Yes, that's more
It's
central.
Really, really awesome.
It's further towards everyone.
What else has been
But
good?
what I'll also do,
I mean, the
If you
Royal
just give me a
Armoury.
second.
Royal Armoury is also very good. Yeah, I mean, museums around here have been really fab. And you've got a really good mix of, these big kind of national museums, and then really, really lovely little museums. The kind of, so there was the Narvik Museum, which, it's the old building for the train company that operates the train that takes the iron ore, and they have one of the trains, and that is a big girl.
Yes, the trains were very big. Oh, that was the other museum. I mean, another museum, the
Yeah.
Narvik Museum on the trains.
Yeah,
Those were really good.
And very reasonably priced as well.
Incredibly
I
reasonably
don't
priced.
think we spent more than £8 to get into a museum.
yeah. I mean, the big ones in Stockholm are possibly a bit more, but they're well worth it.
They are.
I've not felt as though it's been at all overpriced from it. Paying for toilets, public toilets in Scandinavia, that we object to, particularly.
Well, no, I don't really object to, because when I need to go to the low frank dining hall.
If I just want to wash my hands after eating an ice cream I have bought in IKEA in Stockholm, it should not cost twice as much as an ice cream to go and wash any ice cream off my hands.
I will say, I think perhaps for the wood paneling, we do need to make sure we're speaking up in here.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
the
Wow. Yeah.
acoustics are
Softening.
interesting.
It's
No,
a
it's
loud
also
space.
hardening in some aspects and
Yeah,
echoey and
yeah. The acoustics in here. There's us trying to talk to modulate for our tone. Now, what's the vessel on the table behind me? I have no idea. I actually haven't looked that up.
no idea.
But if one of us wants to go try and figure that out. Let's see, what's the next question? That from Knights of Day Front, the G3 battlecruiser was going to use 16.5-inch guns, weren't they? Yes, they were. There's a lot of debate around this, but basically there's the 16.5-inch program, and then they produced a 16-inch program which uses the ideas they've got from testing the German guns, which comes in just sort of slightly afterwards. But the British were working on a 16.5-inch 45, which was development on from the 13.5-inch 45 and 15-inch 42. So that's what they would have used.
I think it's a piece of art rather than any specific vessel.
I would agree with that assessment. There is actually, I will say this room is full of glorious art. If I turn this up a little bit higher, like this, you can see.
Bit more.
No, there's a lag.
But then we disappear, so I have to turn it back slightly.
Me disappearing is not a problem.
No, it's not a problem for you. It's a problem for everyone else, though, because they want to see your pretty face.
I have a face for radio.
It's a better camera this way, but I'm not sure if it's necessarily better in other ways. Yeah, I'm just gonna bring you both in a bit towards me.
Have there been any injuries?
Yes.
Yes.
Multiple bumped heads and some twisted ankles.
Basically, usual par for the course with these strips.
Yeah. It needs to be remembered that naval ships are built for people about half our age and possibly about half our weight.
And half our width.
Yeah. The fact that the two girls guiding us around the ships collectively probably weigh about as much as
One of our legs.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 legs.
No, you haven't seen how petite they are.
They were very petite.
Very, very good.
Yes, absolutely excellent. Really knew their stuff and really interested
And
in the ship.
enthusiastic and interested and yeah. And that's another thing.
Hi,
about
Andy.
this.
And hello everyone, by the way, Runon and Stafford and everyone doing their work, Steve and Runon, Team Lockett, everyone who's chatting away, Santa Clara, everyone's doing the chats. Thank you. Thank you for chatting away, thank you for asking questions, thank you for supporting making this trip possible. You know, it's the donations that have been received and donations still coming into the Ship Shape trip which make these things viable because it's fun. Expensive but fun. And it's worthwhile because we get to see the context and nuance of the history. And there's so many stories which don't translate into, how should I put this, the English-speaking versions, or rather the English-written versions of events. And when you're looking at them and you're going, I always wondered why Gerhard wrote that. And then you're looking at the fjord and you're listening to the other discussions and you're going, oh my lord. And there's a video which I'm not sure when it'll come up, but it's something I've sent to Gareth to do with the ship shapes videos, where I was literally walking through Narvik, and this is something I could do in the middle of the night because it's sunny 24 hours a day. And you realise, A, how densely surrounded the harbour is by housing. And it's when you realise how close HMS Cossack and others were getting, the 4.7-inch shells would probably have been able to, considering the wooden houses, could have gone into one house, exited through from that, gone into another house behind it, exited behind from that, and gone into a third house, and then would have only been stopped because they'd have probably come into contact with the frigating mountain, not because they were being stopped by the houses, because they were that close and they'd have had that much energy. And that was just, there are very few naval battles I can think of where we could sincerely discuss them as urban warfare.
Tanith Falakwa asking, what have we done to Drac? We haven't done anything. He's just booked in as a different hotel. We just saw him for a burger.
He was fine. We weren't worried about Gareth who didn't turn up for the burger, but honestly, what happened was this. I suggested this hotel, it's lovely.
Apart from there's no staff.
Yeah, there's no staff, but apart from that, it's lovely. And basically there was a booking conundrum and the other two ended up in the same other hotel, which is lucky. And we three ended up in this one. And we're having a lovely time staying in something which is a vessel which looks like the Cutty Sark.
No, has an extra mast.
It has an extra mast, yes, but it doesn't look like the Cutty Sark. That's just the style of vessel we're talking about. When you start saying a sailing vessel, you have to be, periodic or what size you're talking about. You're talking Cutty Sark, Great Eastern period vessel.
She's very pretty and very well appointed as a hotel.
Just wish she had more staff.
Yes, she is a bit of a ghost ship.
She needs an actual reception team, not a telephone.
Yes.
With the correct phone number.
I love them when I eventually get through to the correct people. They're very nice and helpful, but the fact that I'm having to phone them and do everything remotely does not make me feel at all comfortable.
Next question. Is there a sweet spot for the German Navy that's large enough to deter the Franco-Russian navies, but not too large to make the British raise an eyebrow like they did historically? Perhaps with better diplomacy and not effectively writing, this means you, Britain, into their naval wars.
Basically a cruiser navy. That's what I would think. If they'd gone with a cruiser heavy navy, a few capital ships they need for the Baltic and for dealing with the French, but not many, and just basically building a cruiser navy. They could actually have been very, very appreciated by the Royal Navy, and that would have probably been a very good thing for the alliance, for the friendship, and perhaps even alliance. Because you have to remember, when Britain's shopping around for an alliance, their first choice is not Japan. Their first choice was Germany. It's just by that point, Germany was writing things into their naval laws, which frankly were upsetting the British enough. They didn't think they thought they might need an alliance against them. The British aren't the French and natural allies with the French and the Russians. The Russians keep threatening to invade India, and the French have always been the French. The Britain's natural allies and historical allies were the Prussians, who had basically been the ones who formed Germany. And let's be honest, the large amount of their high command of the German Federation at the time, or German Empire, whatever you want to call it, was Prussian. And, you know, this is the thing, if they had pursued, traditionally, people like to joke about the British Army traditionally being the shot fired by the Royal Navy. Well, actually, no, traditionally it was the Prussian Army, which was supplied by the Royal Navy.
And that was all by British trade.
Which was protected by the Royal Navy.
And that's the problem with the Germans going for a cruiser navy, because what they will be doing is disrupting trade.
Well, no, because if they've gone for a cruiser navy, they can be foldering in as part of protecting trade with the British. If they go for a protection cruiser navy.
But what they'll want to be doing is cutting the French off from their North African.
Yes, but in the nicest way, the Royal Navy won't be bothered by a German cruiser fleet as much, because they'll still have the capital ship superiority and probably the battle cruisers.
But you'll get drawn into the fighting because the Germans would probably want to base in Gibraltar.
Yes, you might
To
do
do
that,
that.
but honestly, the point is, a cruiser navy is not going to be seen as a challenge to the British, so it's not going to upset the alliance, and it can be considered and spun as an addition to the British. Whereas building a capital ship navy, which is entirely just capital ships, pretty much, because they had sacrificed everything else.
Designed
build the
purely
capital
for the
ships.
North Sea.
That is definitely a gun pointed at the British.
Yeah, well,
So
they don't
it's a
need to go
cruiser.
into the North Sea to fight the French or the Russians, so it's clearly not.
Is this going to be the prototype office for the new place in Cornwall? No, I love the space, but it doesn't have enough bookshelves.
Do they serve iron brew here? We have found several things.
That claim to be iron brew.
Well-
Well, are made by iron brew, but are
Yeah.
not iron brew.
So
They're
there
not
are
iron brewed.
there are
mixed
four-
with cream spilling. Oh,
there are
God.
4
Oh.
iron brew derived energy drinks, which come in original, cherry, tropical, and
Pineapple.
pineapple. No, that was the tropical one.
Was that?
Yeah. What was the other flavour? Was it berry or something?
Yeah, something.
And we also spotted they've got some.
Raspberry Ripple.
They've got sugar-free iron brew, and they've got the sugar-free iron brew, raspberry ripple, and I want to say strawberry or something. But iron brew, no.
Since you're in Sweden, have you tested local cuisine like surströmming or the Swedish meatballs?
Swedish meatballs, yes. Australian, no.
No.
Meatballs, yes, but it was in an IKEA.
We have.
No, we had meatballs breakfast.
We have.
No, I had meatballs in IKEA in Stockholm.
Yeah.
We had them at Hotel Weigel.
We did. We have tested another form of local cuisine, which was new to us, which was that drink, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What was it called again?
I forgot.
Oh, it was that.
Yes,
that Zingo.
Oh, you were
Dingo.
drinking earlier.
Yeah, it was quite a nice drink. We don't have that in the UK, I don't think. At least I haven't seen it. Anyway.
A bit like
I-
Valentino.
It was really nice. And you've been trying out the local beers like anything.
Yes. But I can't get.
Please note, I would like to clarify something. He is definitely not an alcoholic, because I've never met a slower beer drinker in my life. But he does like to experiment by trying new beers. So he's one of those people who goes into a pub and will spend about more time selecting his beer than drinking it, and he spends a long time drinking it. So definitely not an alcoholic, because he doesn't consume enough, but by God. You do like that. You were looking for the Destroyer Lager yesterday.
Yes, they'll have that for us tomorrow.
Yes, but we're going to be doing an in-person Q&A at the Maritime Museum in their bar tomorrow evening, and they are lovely.
Yeah.
We're basically going to get together because these two tomorrow are going sailing with Alex.
I'm really tempted just to go back to the Maritime.
You're really tempted to go back to the museum, but I can understand that.
I didn't get on the fire ship. I didn't get below on the monitor. I'm sure there's bits of the Destroyer.
I didn't get on a little grey patrol boat, but I would say
that one I think might be
the Gothenburg is going to be spectacular. And going with that, Alex probably needs about two people back up there.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like me and Gareth are going to the Fortress Museum. Now the thing is, you could get back early enough to get on the Maritime. Yeah. If you're going in the early morning run, which I presume you are. I presume you booked your tickets.
No, I haven't.
No. Because Clarke disappeared before we had a chance to talk to him about it.
Oh, well, at some point after this conversation, we're going to have to give him a call and get it booked up and sorted out because, yeah, I know he'll probably turn up. We go, well, turn up and we'll just walk on and get tickets on board. And that usually does work for him, but by God, does that increase my stress levels. I love him dearly. But no, we were doing a lot, and I'm going to the Fortress tomorrow. The Fire Problem, isn't it called?
I don't know.
It's the lovely fortress on the island.
Also-
outside Gothenburg. It's really cool.
Okay, we are in a place that is got two spellings: Gothenburg or Gothenburg.
Do we have both
And we
chat
say-
things up? Sort of, but I have to admit the chat is not really on full display.
And yet it's apparently called Göteborg.
Yes. And there's also about
Göteborg.
two different spellings of Gothenburg I've seen today.
No, there are two different spellings of Gothenburg. That's the point. There's Gothenburg
Yeah.
and there's Gothenburg.
And I may have spelled it right or wrong on the stream.
And that's apparently, well, I say apparently, according to Wikipedia, because it was mostly founded by Dutch with some Germans and some British, none of whom would use the spellings of the Swedish language. Yeah.
From Darius Maratsky, cruisers are the auxiliaries while battleships are the capital ships. You make lots of battleships, the RN deems you a competition that needs to be sunk. That's pretty much it. That is to accept. And also there's your shaping of cruisers. It's like if you're building cruisers to beat up the French, that's very different than building cruisers that'll beat up the Royal Navy's cruisers, because let's be honest, the French have been sacrificed on the altar of the Junicole and things like the Dupuy de Long.
And also,
Poor Dupuy de Long.
and their shipyards having such an interesting concept of building the design they're being paid to build.
They consider that an optional extra.
They consider it more guideline.
It's more of a menu.
Yeah. I mean,
Get
we're
some
not
of
going.
these things.
We're not going to get too deeply into movie quotes and things because somebody is just refusing to watch Princess Bride,
Yes.
which is just outrageous. Who here thinks that as part of the donathon that we are planning for him, we should
No.
get him to watch Princess Bride and we can live stream his reactions?
I'm vetoing that right now.
We could probably set it up so you can all be watching Princess Bride and also watching Dr. Clarke.
I am vetoing this.
Shut up, you'll get paid for it.
I'm vetoing it.
Money.
Okay, I need to buy books, yes, and pictures and all sorts of, and probably a new laptop as well, and sort out a new phone at some point. But, you know, in the nicest way, I'm not so desperate I need to watch The Princess Bride.
Yes, you are.
Look, I managed to only spend £50 on books today. came close to being £100, but I decided I wasn't going to buy the other set of the other twin set.
You're very welcome to borrow one of my sets of books as well, by the way.
Thank you.
The one I got, which
They look very cool.
I mean, that's nothing. I mean, Drac got at least 2 Kobe models.
Yes, because the Maritime Museum has Kobe models and they have stock, which includes models which are no longer in production, including, I think, the Orzel.
Yeah, he got the ORP Orzel and the Mayflower.
And Gareth is going to be annoyed because he didn't get any of them because he didn't stay around for that, but he went home back to the back to his hotel. Oh, very good.
But they have multiple of the little Seahunts,
Yes.
which are good.
And they even have the LVT. They even have the
LCV.
They have both the LCV, the landing craft vehicle,
Yeah.
sort of the one, and they have the landing vehicle track (LVTs).
Yeah.
They even have that. They have the LVT model, which I didn't really realise they did.
And they had a US River Patrol boat. Which
I don't care if the Princess Bride is about a pirate as well. I'm still saying no.
It's the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Doesn't bother me. Okay. Okay, Mexchalot. Your take on the USSN's Constellation Frigate program? Well, it's a typical American program. It's a typical any nation's program. You see, you buy something which you're going to claim is going to be 85% similar to everyone else when you're building it, and then you realize once you put in your changes, which were unsurprising, when you realize the American Navy was not able to get through the concept of lean manning or anything like that, especially on that automated reductions, that you have to make so many changes that you end up with only 15% similarity. Pretty much the problem for the US Navy is there is a fundamental difference between building ships for building ships for everyone else and building ships for them, which is one of the reasons why I also laugh every time an Australian member of parliament or academic turns around and goes, we should be just buying Virginias. I honestly don't think these people look up the crew stats and the crew requirements of Virginias and work out just how exhaustive that's going to be. The answer probably should be you should be buying Astutes, but even that's going to be a step up from the Collins, and this is the trouble. There is no real quick solution, and AUKUS is probably the best for it because the Australians want to do American systems, but they don't want to do American manning. So AUKUS is pretty much the only program where they can get something built to British crewing standards with American systems. And that's pretty much what the AUKUS submarine for the Australians is going to be a fusion of the British and the American submarine programs. And the British submarine program will continue as is, and the Americans will continue unable to implement lean manning or anything like that until they have a major issue come up. Because yes, the American carriers are bigger and are better than the British carriers. But are they 5,000 crew versus about 1,200 crew? Are they really 3,800 crew justified better? When you're talking about a carrier which now has more crew than any 2 fleet carriers pretty much in the Second World War, you have to look at it and go, why is it so big? And yes, the air wing and all these things are extremely personnel exhaustive, but we've developed so many systems which are personnel savers, etc., that it still seems a little bit overwhelming. And yes, you need a certain amount of crew definitely for damage control and all sorts of duties you do. But there are also systems you can implement which can mean you can maximize the efficiency of those crew, and you can help them do their job better by having more systems and redundancy built in systems. And you know what's worse is I know the Americans actually build that redundancy into their systems and have the crew as well. And the thing is, it's asking for, Zumwalt Class is a good example. They have an automated system on there which can launch and recover boats. So they can theoretically do a boat launch and recovery with one single person. They still have to do it with the same number of people as they have on the boat. And that takes people away from other tasks, and it makes it more complicated and more difficult. And ultimately, this overworks your crew, or you have to have a significantly larger crew to keep up with that. And it just doesn't make sense. And that's just coming from a fan of the US Navy. I love them. I work with them so often. They're so great people. Some of my best friends and colleagues that come from the US Navy or in the US Navy. And yet I sit and look at their crewing and I have this conversation with them and they go, yeah, we don't understand either.
Yeah. On your response regarding the AUKUS, aren't the RN expected to use the same vessel? That's one of those things which I think it would be fair to say politicians will be told yes, given the speed with which they are built and the complexity.
In a
each ship,
nicest
each
way,
boat-
the Astutes are pretty much two classes of vessel.
Yeah.
The thing is,
each one is sufficiently individual that they will have the bespoke systems you want to put into them.
the British ships will be the full British vessels with full British systems, including the British takes on some American systems. The American vessels will be the full American vessels with the American takes on some British systems, probably, because that's often how it works with our nuclear submarine programs. And the Australian submarine will be some of the British systems, some of the American systems, and probably American fire control and American weaponry. There is an interesting discussion going over whether they're going to go with the American or British sensors. I think that's going to be an interesting discussion. I've already heard some things going on. But it's going to be British-style reactor management and British-style, that's a system which requires, that has less people as overall. It's not by much, but you'd be surprised over a group of 6 or so boats requiring, let's say, 20 less people per boat. That's 120 less on the crew, but that's 360 overall less for the total force. Probably about 480 once you get into the full fit of instructors, etc. And that adds up for smaller navies. When you've got navies which are running their crews of 20,000 personnel or something like that, an extra 500 people less or 500 people more can make or break a system.
Have you just failed to scroll the thing down, or are there no questions in the chat?
Well, there is another question on here. There is the your response to AUKUS was put up there. Then there's a bit of a slow-mo going on, and I haven't rolled this down well, but there does seem to be Knight 6831 wanting to put questions for Bruships into the Discord. Basically, a Knight 6831, I think the limit for the Discord is, the limit to this question is, if you want the admins to move the questions across the Discord, they're saying it's 2 points or less, not 3 or 4 or 5. I think there was actually someone, I don't think it was you, who did a 6, and that just complicates it for them. So they said 2 or less if you want them to do it. If you're in the Discord and you can put the questions in yourself, then you of course have no limit. And actually that's the advantage of Discord for the questions, in that there is no limit, so they can only put in one, which can make life a lot easier for people to read through.
For us to read.
Yes, and for us to find. And for us to chat away from, basically.
Other things about this trip.
What we're looking forward to coming up. There's going to be the party tomorrow night on the Marion, I said, the Marion Maritime. Estonia, yeah.
These people.
Yeah. We get to, we're going to be doing a day trip to Tallinn from Helsinki.
I'm not, I have to go back to work.
He can't even come to Finland, poor guy.
That's okay, because Finland doesn't exist. It's a mythical
No,
place.
it's not one like Wyoming. Wyoming is a government conspiracy. Finland actually does exist.
No.
I know this because Sweden used to control it, and then it got lost to Russia, and that's an independent country.
I've been to Wyoming. I don't believe Finland exists.
So for the audience, how much from modern Navy is available at sea duty? Usually it's about a third. I usually have about a third available for duty, a third in training and various other things, and a third in refit or repair. And it gets even more fun once you start adding in construction and long-term refits, because long-term refits can mean you lose a vessel from the cycle for two or more years. And then if you add in things like, oh, we just bashed into something, or one of our engines just managed to come across because of a mistake. And I do love this, the amount of times I see in some history books, they go, we suspect this was sabotage. And then you look at it and you go, no, that was just tired kids making a mistake.
Yeah,
It must be sabotage because only an idiot would have an aviation fuel fire on the deck, and it must have done it on purpose. No, if you're tired and you're handling aviation fuel and you're, let's say, 18, 19 years old, the ship's rocking around, you're trying to do your job, you're stressed, you're away from home for your first time maybe, you might make a mistake. And it only takes the slightest spark to start off aviation fuel, and that's not sabotage. That is called being 18, 19 years old. And the thing is, you train them, and the only way they get better is if they have time in service. Someone who wants to remember, oh, it's better therefore the forces should only take people who are 21 years old. And I went, so you're basically saying what you're saying, plus 21-year-olds don't have the same mistakes that 18-year-olds do, and they should only take 21-year-olds. Is that including the people who've been in the service for 3 years by that point, or just the people who joined at 21? My study hasn't defined that, Mum. Oh, so basically your study includes most of the 21-year-olds in the Navy are going to be people who've been in for 3 years, who are on especially the ones who are actually on duty. And yeah, I would expect them to make less mistakes than the people who were 18 years old, because they've had the experience. It's just...
I mean, as you get older, you might make different mistakes when you're
learning. You tend to make even bigger mistakes when you make a mistake.
But you're not going to not make mistakes.
No, yeah. It happens to all of us when we're tired and stressed.
Yeah.
We're humans.
And actually, you can deal with those things better normally when you are about 18. Because although teenagers may not realise it, they can, when you're younger, you can keep powering through things on the power of caffeine and possibly being annoyed at your NCOs in a way that actually as you get older you just go flump. Plus, as you get older, you're more likely to get the kind of decision fatigue and everything that you're not going to be asking your 18-year-old to do, but your 18-year-old is going to potentially be still doing something incredibly irresponsible on a ship.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's not even go there with submarines.
Oh, good Lord, no.
Where flushing the toilet wrong can sink your submarine.
That's literally what happened to some U-boats, as far as we can tell. If one has free time, can one tag along over to Talon? Yes. If people have free time, they're more. It's a day trip on the crew, day trip on the boat. That's fine by us. We've worked out the very. We're doing the day trip. Yeah.
I was trying to think. There was something else to talk about with one of the guides, and we were talking about how, that seems almost idiot-proof. Why would you have that in?
We were in the radar room.
Yeah, and it was like, because people are going to be tired, and people are going to be potentially making mistakes, and so you set things so that they remember to do things. This was, I think, about changing the water in the water-cooled system radar systems.
Changing what I think I actually incorrectly called at the time cathode ray tube, but
valves?
The valves, yes.
Yeah.
You should have corrected me at the time.
I
My brain was
sure.
going completely wrong.
No, I wasn't sure.
I'm not sure why it went to cathode ray tube rather than...
Because it looked like a cathode ray tube.
Yes.
It looked exactly like a cathode ray tube.
But
that would be why. But it was, and I don't know what those things actually look like as valves, and I couldn't think of the word either.
No. But yeah, it was basically, it didn't have chips, it had the older systems. And
And it was kind of unscrewing some of the panels and pointing out, this is the panel which enables you to maximally energize your radar. That's why it's behind something that's easily removable, but also so that you can't accidentally knock it. And we were explaining about how, so what you'll do is you'd unscrew it and it would make sure it's all turned off, and you would station the responsible NCO there to make sure it stays off when you have people aloft.
Doing the maintenance, because that's what you need to.
Yeah.
You need to do that. It was a really interesting thing looking around. I have to say, it's one of the things we're going to find the more and more we go around ships, especially when we get to filming them. Sorry we missed this today, but this poor gentleman managed to have a muck up with his meds last night. I was worried about food poisoning.
Yeah, so that also.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. I didn't have that because I was going. It was lovely. If you got food poisoning, that's going to ruin the whole experience. And you're okay.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And then saw the bill. Horrendous indigestion.
Yeah, it's always great when you get back to your hotel room and you turn on your banking app and you go, so that's what it was in pounds.
Yeah.
I might need to do a second mortgage.
Yeah, so that one was yeah, and just oh my god, she's such a gorgeous ship.
Oh, the smell of this.
Yeah.
She is, as I keep I approach her and I know the links that there was between Sweden and the Royal Navy at the time and etc. and discussions going on. So I describe her as in many ways as the Swedish daring, that their designs of history, and in some ways you can see some lines there. But pretty much Sweden has this policy with Bofors that they turn around and go, we want weapons, and Bofors go, what do you want? And the Swedish Navy goes,
Everything.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, she has anti-submarine mortars. She has
no. She has 8 barrels
of
of anti-submarine mortars, so that you can fire a pattern of 8 before you need to reload. She has 7 or 8 torpedo tubes.
No, she has 8, a quintuple and a triple now. She was built with 2 quadruple. She then had to change to a quintuple and a triple. The reason she had that change was they mounted a missile launcher on top of the triple torpedoes. She has 120mm guns, double.
She has 2 twins, fore and aft of
Yeah.
that, which is obviously a 4.7 inch.
She has a double
And
57mm.
then 50 cal.
Double 57.
Yeah, she's got the twin 57 6-pounder. She's got, is it
6 40mm.
6 single Bofors 40mm. I mean, one shouldn't really need to say Bofors for the 40mm, but you know.
Yeah, it's all Bofors.
Everything's Bofors. Everything is Bofors. And then she also has mine lane rails.
Yes.
Lots
And
of
other
mine.
things which come out of the stern.
Yes.
And a helicopter pad.
And
a lot of rocket launcher rails, which they claim off of flare rockets, but looking at the rockets, their size and length, they would fit, and they could be very easily rockets for other things.
well, I mean, you want to use it to illuminate the enemy. You can either do that
Yes.
by launching a flare
But
high up in the air and then having a little parachute coming down, or you can set fire to the enemy ship.
Yes, but they had 6 rails on the forward 120mm, 6 rails on the aft 120mm, and then they had a box rocket launcher centre, which had another
Lots.
8 or was
I
it
didn't
12
count.
rails?
I lost
I think it was about 8 rails on there. And you sit there and go, that's 20 rocket launcher rails. You don't need 20 rocket launcher rails to maintain a flare coverage. That's a lot of flares if you need that. That's a lot of buzz. And she also has smoke and other things. Honestly, I will testify that World of Warships, considering her recent performance apparently there, has nerfed her.
Massively.
When she was first put in game, apparently she used to kill everything, including every airstrike aimed at her. And yeah, I'm not surprised.
Not remotely. She
was designed to take out airstrikes.
And then I thought the lines, right, especially at the bow, were incredibly tribal-like.
Yes, but they're also quite daring-like in the battle shape.
But it just really gorgeous lines.
Yes, really well designed that period.
And nice engine rooms.
Yes.
And really well put together. The engine rooms have it's for health and safety boxes. In no way.
Chemical, biological warfare, survival points. There.
Yeah, positions in each of the engine rooms. They
You
have.
can lock down inside.
Yeah, they have a couple.
They're
of.
also waterproof.
You have a couple of. You have a really extensive CIC.
Yes.
Really impressive.
Really cool to walk through.
Yeah. and they've laid it out really nicely.
And when I say cool to walk through, I used up a good 30 gigabytes of my memory on my HDR camera recording through that.
Yeah, and
About the same amount as I did in the engine room.
and this is why I kind of want to go back tomorrow, because this is just one of their 19 ships.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they were letting us have a look in areas.
oh, they were absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, they were just wonderful. They were like, if our keys unlock it, we'll let you go there.
Yeah. And tomorrow night, their manager has basically said, anything we need, they'll do to support. This is one of the reasons why, when we find a museum which is just being so nice and so kind of helpful, we will help them out in every way, shape, or form. And they need the attention, they need the love. They are looking at, as I said, the monitor, there's a turret project on there, they have a figure in mind of how much money they need to raise. I'm not sure where to start and how to do it. I'm hoping it will start, and I think, honestly, Gareth might have already decided what's going to be one of his next projects, as if the man needed any more projects.
Yeah,
The man is just
but
working
this
so hard.
but this museum, I mean, they've got gorgeous ships. They're really open. They have so much stuff for kids here as well. They have loads of kind of science experiment stuff out. They do tours for kids. They've got a space set aside for birthday parties in the destroyer, which is properly set out for it. They've got really nice food and drink. You know, it is really, really fun. It's in the centre of, from what I can tell, the centre of the city.
Yeah.
And
It's really easy to get to. And I have to again say, this hotel is really nice for getting around there. It's just the reception.
Yeah.
Also, a history question. Force Z survives, but Admiral Phillips doesn't, killed by strapping fire. Who takes over and how do events play out for the next 6 to 8 months? I'd say it has to be Naval sent out there. Because they're already removing him from coast, putting Horton in charge of the summary of the Western Frontiers Command.
But
And Noble is the former CNC China, so if you're going to send anyone out there, you probably need to send him.
But immediately it will be Palliser?
It could be Somerville also is sent out. Rushed out, because he's the one who sent out to take over the Indian Ocean Fleet, so they might rush him out instead to reinforce and take command of 4C.
Yeah.
There is a commander present, senior, there is a rear admiral somewhere floating
Well,
around.
there's two rear admirals. There's the rear admiral who went out with Phillips, who's the one who kind of got everything, who called back, repulsed, whilst Phillips was basically in the air and did all of that.
Yeah.
And there's the guy who had been the CNC China station and then went off to be in charge of the dockyard in Ceylon, who I think was, from what I can tell, was not seen as somebody they wanted as a frontline commander.
Yeah. I think your options are going to be Nobel, Somerville, or
but
it's
as an interim, it'll probably be the chief of staff.
And
because you're not getting ABC out of them there.
it's probably Somerville who comes out, but the other option is Noble. If you've got a existing fleet to take command.
Ooh, that's fun. The computer just went into screensaver mode.
Yeah.
That was fun. And now we get to watch and try and work out what Alex's password is.
It's very easy. My passwords on my laptops are usually Terry Pratchett clutters.
Okay. This one I think is Eric.
Okay.
But
that one's an interesting one. That is an interesting one. It's probably.
How do events play out? I mean, if you're talking about the ships just getting minor strafing, then the Japanese have what is effectively an existential threat to their forces in the South China Sea.
It's going to be a race for the Allies to reinforce them with carriers versus
the
Kido getting home, getting rearmed, and getting sent down.
And you might get Nagato and Mutsu being sent down.
Probably they're about the only things they've got which are they could send all 4 Congos, but they're going to get nerfed.
Well, the problem is they've already got 2 Congos there. The other 2 Congos are with the Kido Batai.
Because let's be honest, a Congo versus Prince of Wales is not a fair fight for the Congo.
No, so that's the kind of fight the Royal Navy would like.
Yeah. And you're probably also going to get the Royal Navy trying to reinforce it. Basically, what you probably end up with is them forming the core of ABCDA, the ABDA command, and probably you're going to get Indomitable, Illustrious, and Saratoga forming up as the carrier wing of that, with some fast capital ships and
Warspite.
Warspite isn't technically fast enough.
You tell her that.
No, you can. Actually, no, you can tell Drac that, and he can tell her that.
Okay, so we give Dalrymple Hamilton command of the just fresh out of a US dockyard Warspite with a clean hull.
And brand new boilers. Oh, good lord, the things that man will do to those boilers. She would so not be available to work by DE day.
But my
She
God,
needs
she would
boilers
race across the Pacific.
Dalrymple Hamilton doesn't understand the concept of brakes in ships.
He's very much of the paint it red so it goes faster.
Okay.
Black
What?
Widow.
Well, first of John Shea, what ship were we talking about? We're talking about the Svan.
Yeah.
The Swedish destroyer. It's gorgeous.
Islam.
From Black Widow, if a Royal Navy warship of the earlier 20th century is responding to a civilian ship in distress in peacetime, do they go to action stations or something else? They tend to go to recovery stations, whereby they'll stand by nets and boats. They will have some people watching the secondary guns, just in case, but they will have most people by boats and net stations. Renan, you can pay me for the bot work either by watching The Princess Bride or A Notable Man of 1901. Send me your address by DM, the 1901 will arrive. KVG, smoke chaff rockets on the Daragonos's DD rails. There were some very interesting things on Daragonos's.
I think they could, I think they could have an awful lot more a variety of warheads. I think things like smoke, chaff, illumination, illumination that might happen to
Set fire to the ship.
behave exactly like white phosphorus were it to hit things.
I'm sure our colleague could talk about that one. No, would that be a viable thing?
It would. You're going to incapacitate the crew very quickly.
Because from what I can tell,
After all, that was actually the Royal Navy's method of lighting, of illuminating
Yeah.
ships. It was called illumination by fire. It was using class destroyers and their 4.7 shells to start fires on large ships.
what caliber shells do they have?
120mm,
What's that in Imperial?
4.7 inches, roughly.
Exactly.
Because it's 105 is roughly 4 inches.
Yep.
Yeah.
4.5 is 113.
Yeah.
120.
About 4.7.
Yeah. And one of the other things they had on the ship, which is just so gorgeous, they have at least 8 spare 40mm barrels.
And please note, her official top speed her officially recorded top speed was 37 knots.
So we have a ship that it goes 37 knots that has 6 mountings for 40mm Bofors guns, but carries 8 spare barrels.
That are still visible on the ship.
Yeah.
Mine
That has a
was-
twin 57mm dual purpose and 2 sets of twin 120mm 4.7-inch 50 guns.
If you seem slightly distracted, we're just noticing that the chandelier is swaying quite comprehensively.
There is also the swingometer.
Yes.
Swingometer is going by about 0.2, 0.3 degrees. Chandelier is doing 3 to 4 degrees.
Yes.
And the lights are also going as well.
So the
But
ship
they're
is,
all going at slightly different pace.
so the ship is rocking.
Simple harmonic motion.
Yeah.
How much more time should you have allocated the Scandi ships? Oh, I don't know. I think it would have been.
No, Vic, we didn't have enough time.
No, we didn't have enough time in Narvik. We could have done more time in Oslo. We could do more time here. Karlsruhe, we will never know how much time we could have used because we didn't get in to do some of the stuff. But honestly, if we probably
If we
Yeah.
were able to get in, I think 3 or 4 days now.
yes, honestly, I could quite easily see this trip having been a 8-week trip, and we'd still feel we hadn't quite hit everything could have done. And this is why there will be at some point a Scandi ship too. And this is why this is one of these things about the fundamentals you realise about ship shape is that we're starting this, we're keeping this going, we've got plans things, but at some point we are going to start re-going over the same territory we've done before, literally because we also come away from these places with a list of things we've missed. It's like I'm trying to get him into the medical museum in Gothenburg because honestly, if him and a cameraman goes in there, they will probably find endless amount of stuff to talk about. But it's trying to get him into it. In the time, it's just,
And I'll be honest, I really just want to go back to Canada.
yes,
Although,
we do want to go back to Canada.
also the Buffalo Naval Park was awesome.
And I think that's part of the reason you want to go back to Canada is you still want to take a lot of pictures of yourself with the regiment at Halifax because you didn't get the picture of you standing with all the regiment marshal like some other tourists did. They were really nice. They had a really good reenactment of the regiment in
They
Halifax.
scare me with the quality of their bayonet and musket drill.
They're really good. Basically, they're the humanities students, mostly it seems to be, from the local university, volunteer to be the regiment in which, and they take it incredibly seriously.
But because it's a Highland regiment or Scots regiment, the girls don't mind wearing skirts, and so they play the infantry, and the boys play the artillery. They
Yeah.
get to play with the bigger booms. But the girls get bayonets.
It's a scary thing when you see it.
Yeah.
It's me sitting there going as a uni lecturer thinking, they look like my first years.
Yeah.
Would I like the concept of my first years being armed with bayonets longer than their forearms? No.
On the other hand, they were very good at clearing the last of the tourists out the gate.
They did.
When
really
they
good.
had about half a dozen of them just lining up and,
We have to
presenting
take
bayonets
facts.
and walking
We
through.
also have to introduce you to poutine.
Indeed.
No,
we have to-
poutine can be skipped.
No, we should introduce them to poutine.
Canadians are probably going to think this is sacrilege, but yeah.
Yes.
No, poutine, not so much. A lot of the other Canadian food, yes, please.
Darren Zaratsky will like goes as fast as the situation dictates, probably.
There was the famous thing Michael Straczynski said about Babylon 5. How fast do your ships go? They go at the speed of plot. They go as fast as I need them to. Given how much plot armor Warspite has, I think she can have plot engines as well.
She probably did. Runan, how knackered are the opponent navies? In the nicest way, if you have 4C surviving and the carriers form up around them, Lord help them. Because that was the main reason Saratoga didn't come to ABDA command, was because they had no reason to reinforcing it was not sensible. And that's why the Americans kept going. If you have capital ships to reinforce, then they offer a level of protection for Saratoga, and Saratoga offers them a level of protection. And if you have Illustrious and Indomitable turn up, then that's 3 very good carriers. 3 very well-rounded carriers. With probably someone like Somerville in charge. And let's be honest, he was happy with the night attack in Operation Seed. What he'd have done in this circumstance.
Oh god, it just... The poor
With
Japanese.
Saratoga to do a dawn strike, whilst Illustrious and Indomitable do the night strike, is just going to not be nice. What if a Royal Navy capital ship cruiser reached Titanic half an hour before the final plunge? They'd have done their best to help everyone.
Yeah, they'd have got everyone out.
They'd have
Or
done
done their best.
They'd have done their living best to get everyone out. They'd have lighted up the area as much as they could.
Mm.
Look, in Sweden, there's a chain store called Normal that potentially sells iron brew.
Yes, that's where we bought them from.
I essentially, because when I checked earlier this week, they'd apparently replaced it with Power Brew. Yes, I know. That's what these two keep trying to get me and Drac to drink. It's gross.
But I do have a little bag that is a complete lie now. It says normal. I'm not normal.
Corbyn, if SMS Grosse Kurfürst had been rammed and sunk by König Wilhelm in 1878 and given the Reichstag cold feet in regards to funding the Navy, how would this affect the early German Navy and their first naval laws? First naval laws probably wouldn't happen, and the early German Navy would be spending its time trying to prove its worth.
Mm.
And it might be about 22, 23 years before they start getting any decent funding. So that means they're not launching any kind of quantitative effect until then, which means they might end up being part of the qualitative race, which is actually interesting. Because Germany in the qualitative race are producing small numbers of very good ships, add something to the qualitative race, rather than trying to produce the volume of ships, because that's their trouble.
You know what else might happen in that case?
Yeah.
The Swedes would get involved. Both of us.
Oh, don't get me started on both of us. If the Swedes started producing battleships in that period, we'd be in real trouble. Blackman Maximus, will there be another ship-shaped trip to Canada? Yes. P.S. If coming to Southern, try to get Galileo, so it reached plus 30 degrees. We do realise this. Canada still remains the only ship-shaped trip we've ever got sunburn on.
Yeah.
We've come close.
Come
here,
close.
but we haven't quite reached
to
it.
be fair, needing to put on to renew your sunblock at 10 o'clock at night is not normal.
Needing to renew it at 1 a.m. in the morning is a bit weird as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we can be excused. But no, I mean, I've actually got a bit of a tap here.
We are in Gothenburg, which is not exactly as north as we were. It is 10 o'clock at night, and I can tell you now, the light coming from up there is the same as it was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's because it was overcast at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It cleared up a bit.
Yeah, but that light's still not gone over. It's still a bit
Yeah.
overcast. Up
When did Royal Navy ships stop being equipped with radio direction fine equipment?
About the moment they started having radios.
But in terms of the kind of RDF that was used against U-boats and things, I think it was pretty widespread before the Second World War broke out, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was on some vessels. There were half dozen things were starting being put on, variations of them, early variations in about 1930s. But there'd been radio finding gear on Royal Navy things like Tam-class cruisers prior to World War One. They're used in World War One to hunt down the Germans. And that's the thing, the Royal Navy likes...
But the Germans do not understand transmitting on anything other than maximum power.
No, they don't.
And must submit very detailed, lengthy report.
I know. There was a person who commented to me on my channel recently about me being me not being concise enough, and I went, well, I am adding in context. But then I thought, also, I'm not someone sending a radio transmission in the middle of a war zone. I do not. I can be as contextual and nuanced as I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve C with your nice band hammer, which is a wonderful username, by the way. In the Treaty of Versailles, Britain retakes control of Heligoland. Discuss.
The little island of Germany. What do you think happens?
I think a certain individual gets very with an irritating small moustache, gets very angry, and
He couldn't grow a full proper beard like us three. He just
I
couldn't.
can't
That's
really
one
grow a
of the
proper
reasons
beard.
why he felt bad. He was so annoying.
but
You've got a beard, my friend. Far better than he could produce.
But message from Gareth.
Yeah, Gareth the Brit is just posting his first 1875 monitor video from Maritimens.
Videos
Yeah.
being posted live on his channel.
So once we're done, go find his stuff.
Yeah. Gareth
And
the
also find the Maritimens channel.
Yeah.
They have a YouTube channel. They need love. Go and find them.
There are links in various places, and I'm going to
Yeah,
put a link down
they're-
below
they're-
this
they're,
now later.
We found them, I think, less than 50 subscribers. I haven't checked how many they're up to recently.
I think they're up to somewhere around about 90 mark.
That was yesterday. No, it's.
That's it.
Ooh,
Yes,
I'm missing a live. Oh, that's just freaky watching myself.
That's what I have to deal with every time I do a live. Watching myself live, that's just worse.
I don't like seeing
It's
myself.
even worse when you're editing yourself. You have to look at your face.
They're up to 90.
Yeah.
They have 90 subscribers now. Come on, people. Come on. I expect to see this going up.
So, the Treaty of Versailles, Britain retakes control of Heligoland. What happens, do you think? I think resupplying is a nightmare.
Yes.
Worth it.
I think the British are going to have an air base there.
Yeah.
So I think
I think they're going to have a very
I
good
think
listening
the
base.
Luftwaffe are going to very definitely think twice about invading the Low Countries and France, because as long as you stick Hurricanes there,
Yeah.
rather than the Gloucester Gladiator, which was,
Yeah. The Gloucester Gladiator was lovely and it was full of spirit. And let's be honest,
15 years out of date.
the Gloucester Gladiators over Malta do surprisingly well.
They do.
Are you watching your?
Dodgy Wolf Yoga.
What can I say? He likes the channels. Where he feels really encouraged by the channels which are full of yoga and yoga positions.
But people, women doing yoga.
You said it,
why.
mate.
I wonder why.
No, that was cosplayers.
Akagi from Azur Lane or Akagi from Camp. Yes, he's found the cosplay channels on YouTube recently. Akagi from Azur Lane or Akagi from the Kantai collection.
I haven't seen the one from Azur Lane, and I have just been told apparently about the Kantai collection because I haven't heard of that before. So Dr. Dan is probably going to look them up right about now, and then we'll see.
Do we mean that one?
Potentially. That's Azur Lane. Is it?
Right, apparently.
Akagi, okay.
And what was the other one?
Kantai collection. Top 5 ships from each nation. What should have been saved from scrapping Tiger South World War II to be reserved museum ships for their respective nations? Oh, good lord, from each nation. Let's adapt that question just a tad, as I don't have infinite battery life on this computer, and that could be about 2 hours question. What 5 ships would you like from World War II to be saved from all people? I'm asking Dan on this side, because Dan on that side searching his phone.
I'm very disturbed by this.
That's better than the other one.
True. No idea if that's going to come through because you don't have that.
I think the Kantai collection one's better.
The Kantai collection one is less weird,
Probably.
but they're all still very
What would you like to preserve?
troubling.
Preserved or refloated?
Preserved as museum ships?
But actually, are we including ones that have actually been sunk?
No.
Right.
That means sunk, they're not going to be recovered. Unless they're in something like a nice shallow fjord and you can pick them up from there, then they're okay. But if it's the bottom of the Atlantic, there's no way you're going after Bismarck.
Can we have a bit of Eskimo?
Well,
Eskimo's bow is, there are many Eskimo bows. Which one do you want?
I'll take the one from the fjord.
Considering we saw a bit of the armour from the Tit-Bits and how thick it was, and the fragments of one of the tall boy bottoms that obliterated it, basically. If that wasn't too deep, maybe that would be interesting. I'm surprised there are so few E-boats still in existence.
I'm not. There weren't actually all that many of them.
Schnellboats.
The Schnellboots, they didn't actually make all that many.
Right.
They're classic German. They're massively over-engineered to do what they did. So they dominated the British initially,
Until they met dog boats.
and then the British just went, okay, fine, we will just have to go upgrade things. And so the motor anti-submarine boats got turned into motor gun boats because they'd had depth charges rather than torpedoes. And then they also moved on to the FMRDs, the dog boats. And then suddenly the Schnellboot stopped being quite so much of a problem because they'd only made a smallish number. They didn't particularly keep them in production.
It was the R boats which were actually far more common and far more useful. And quite often when people say we were attacked by torpedo boats, they presume it was Schnell boats and it was actually R boats.
Right, okay.
That's one of the things. But they would be, it would be nice to have slightly more of them around. It would also be nice to have some dog boats around.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of smaller ships which I'd like to see preserved. I think in terms of my big status ship I'd like to see preserved, it would probably, well, if Drac was here, he'd be saying Warspite, so I'm not going to go with that, but I'm going to go with Illustrious. I think she should be preserved, the aircraft carrier.
Renown.
You all know I would like a Travel class destroyer, and if I had to pick a second cavalry ship, I'd go with Renown as well.
Because Renown saw World War One. But I mean, that's the reason why you'd want Warspite, because she was at Jutland. She was at, yeah.
She was doing Operation C and D-Day and all sorts of things, you know, the ships.
She was even there for the shell, wasn't she?
From the Americans, I would like Saratoga to be still around, but I feel that the fact they nuked her after the war is
Saratoga and
desecration.
Enterprise CB6 are the obvious ones for the Americans.
CB6 was, yeah.
Any other American ships? I mean, HMS President. Sorry, USS President. Except she fell apart.
I'd like an Italian battleship to be around because I think the Littorios I think it'd be really interesting, especially if you had turbines like you guys saw. If you had a Littorio as well, oh my lord, that'd be lovely to compare them because you could finally have people going, the argument and going, yes, all the ships produced by the Germans were amazing and the Italians produced terrible ships, and then you go, look at that.
The Italians produced fantastic ships
for the Mediterranean.
And they suffered from a dictatorship's high command.
Yes.
That was their problem with the Italians.
Dictatorships are a problem.
Yeah.
They really are.
You could refloat Prince Eugen, but why would you bother? Good point. Yeah, no one would want that.
Honestly, you could refresh her and then say, does the Norwegian fjord want to go around again? Oslo Fortress. Which I have to say, I have sneaked some looks at some of the footage they got from, and it's going to be spectacular.
Get Boom Boom to acquire the battered bonk.
I'm not sure what that means.
No.
The battered bonk does sound fun.
I mean, especially considering that, from what I can tell, bat seems to just be the word for boat around here, which does mean that you can get on the Bat Ferry, which, you know, does seem quite cool to me.
Black Maximus generally doesn't scuttle its navy after World War I. What's the impact on aftermath of war and beyond, such as distribution of fleet amongst the powers, balance of powers, naval treaties in World War II? Naval treaties won't happen. And the reason the naval treaties won't happen is the Royal Navy will suddenly be dealing with a lot of nations like Japan, like Italy, like perhaps potentially Russia, although they're in such a political mess they can't go, and America getting German ships, and that's going to cause an issue.
It was bad enough for everyone getting
It doesn't really matter who gets what. What matters is once they've got it, there's going to be a lot more firepower in the world, and the Royal Navy is not going to feel comfortable, and the British government aren't going to feel comfortable. So those Washington naval treaties aren't going to happen, because basically the moment they're there, suddenly there's too much spreading around of German knowledge to add to your own knowledge, and that's usually the thing that improves your capabilities. Does Eskimo have a combat addiction or a rhinoplasty addiction masquerading as a combat addiction?
No, and any suggestion that she snorted too much coke is not true.
No, she was.
No, it's.
What's the question against the sea?
I think it varies.
The,
one in what's it called?
the issue was, well, no, the point was
Guncon, no.
the ships that the Royal Navy were building at the time, say the Tribal class destroyers, were built sufficiently well that they could have their bow blown off and survive, or their stern blown off and survive, because Ashanti's booty was also
It was Nubian's booty.
oh, Nubian's booty. Sorry.
Yes, Asante managed to get through World War II without actually taking any serious damage, thanks to,
Well, I would put it down to a certain golden shield and a silver bell that she was given by the Asante tribe.
Can you imagine if we'd managed to get the Malta-class carrier HMS New Zealand? She would have been untouchable as well, given what happened with HMS New Zealand, the cruiser.
That's a very scary, complicated idea, because that could have honestly led to a Cold War actually turning hot, because her and a submarine called Warspite decided to go get frisky with the Soviet Navy.
But also, would you be able to have a carrier landing accident on her? Or would that be nullified by the Juju?
I have no idea and I don't want to think it out.
No.
That was, aircraft carriers being built to the same number of battleships on the Washington Naval Treaty, but still limited to 27,000 tons on the same limit, and 6 conversions are allowed. The Royal Navy's having a party. The Americans will get as slow a production as the government can provide them with, and they're both worried about the Japanese having quite so many carriers. That's the main problem. But the Royal Navy with 15 carriers is looking at a fairly happy force.
The Americans are ending up with 6 Lexington conversions, and
The British are probably not doing any conversions still. They're just going to build them from scratch.
and the Americans, Congress will probably consider funding a purpose-built carrier sometime around 1990.
Let's see, later on. Question 221. Would I be right in thinking that Engineers 2 Miko Admiralty Brown class gun was destroyed in 1982 destroyers? Well, A, the Mikos were frigates. We'll leave that to one side. Will the British take that into account if organs haven't? Yes. The British took all of them into account, but the Mikos 360s were frigates, not really destroyers. There's a discussion over at some point, but the Miko class were frigates. Yeah, they're frigates. Their whole design, everything is frigate. And they classified by everyone else as frigates. The Argentinians occasionally try and claim to be destroyers, but if everyone else is calling them frigates, you're in problems. I do realise there is precedent with the Australians and the Hobarts, who call theirs destroyers, and the Spanish call them frigates, but there were some modifications made.
It's also a Spanish thing that the Spanish don't do destroyers.
Yes, they just have frigate.
Like the Germans.
Yes. What if the Royal Navy completes all the Admiral class battlecruisers? That would also affect pretty much every bit of history, but basically that means you can no longer have the joyous thing of we're going to set the capital ship limits to 35,000 tons.
Yeah, it'll be 45,000.
Yes, because unfortunately there's going to be 4 ships floating around the world which have 45,000.
And that's harder to ignore than one.
And the Royal Navy's still going to want some 16-inch gun ships, so Lord help the Americans at that Washington Treaty negotiation. From Leonard Elderan, I'd say battlecruiser sailors should have been preserved. Does the Scarpa recover count? I wouldn't say no. From
Would you not prefer the Iron Dog, Difflinger?
I think Seidlitz, after the fact she managed to stay afloat, I found a picture of her after Germany coming back. She is basically being held afloat by the prayers of her crew.
She's very much trying to join the U-boat army.
The fact is, if she'd sunk, the entire narrative of the Battle of Jutland changes, because the Germans lose a battle cruiser as well, and the idea of the German battle cruisers being so much superior to the British battle cruisers would be completely lost. But the reality is, it wasn't quite that bad. I will say there are some people possibly coming down here.
We also may need to go because it's getting on for 10:30.
And the battery is starting to die on the phone, on the laptop.
But 96831, question 210. If in World War I the RN had 44 US
destroyers between them and the Royal Navy
and
and
the
Royal Canadian Navy also had
about number 16.
How would they be used? They'd be used as destroyers.
Pretty
World
much
War
they-
One destroyers.
They'll be used. There'll be extra things on probably the Grand Fleet, but probably also some of the Battlecruiser fleet, and some will be sitting around at the Channel Squadron.
Yeah. Runon, what happens if you make an HMS New Zealand multi-class out of Warspite steel and have the Maori bless her upon commissioning? The Asante people will be grumpy that they weren't invited, and you will find yourself having to refit some Asante steel into the hull
Yes.
and getting blessings from them, and you will then
Have a ship which will be unsinkable.
yeah, provided you maintain the correct rights and appease the machine spirits.
I was saying now, last 3 questions, because there are people looking in here, and I don't want to keep them from their room if they're coming down here. For Dr. Dan, are you aware of why Amber Hudson died? Is stress and overwork? It was a contributory factor, I believe. But what was the cause of death? And what, from modern BNF pharmacopoeia, would you prescribe? The usual statins, aspirin, ACE?
So the description is I haven't, there's not much publicly available in terms of records. From what I've been able to piece together, I wonder if he would have had, he'd smoked heavily and had a lot of stress, enough to actually cause problems, because stress isn't really the huge thing that people thought it was. That was just white men with poor diets in middle class jobs. So I think he probably had hypertension, so high blood pressure, and probably a dodgy cholesterol and things, so had hardened arteries. I think he probably had a degree of heart failure. I think he probably went into atrial fibrillation. And then the description of him having the kind of something going on, I think he probably then had a stroke following that. So heart failure, the heart gets bigger and inefficient. That, for various reasons, there's various things to do with that that will lead it to go into atrial fibrillation, which is uncontrolled contraction of the atria, which just kind of do the pre-filling. So you can get by fine with it. You'll lose a small percentage, maybe up to 10% of cardiac output, if that happens to you. So you may notice if you flip in and out of atrial fibrillation, but it's not normally a catastrophe. But particularly in the left atrial appendage, you can get a bit where the blood gets very what's the right word? It's not turbulent. It's can actually get stasis, sufficient stasis that it can form a thrombus, a clot, and then through bad luck, it will then go into your and then get pinged out into your ventricle and then shoot off into your circulation. And about the first place that will potentially rattle out of is your brain. And that's how you end up with a stroke from that. And that could easily have, because I think the description is that he was getting ill and things, so that could be the heart failure. And then because it's down as a kind of brain tumor or something, I think. But I wonder if that's actually not what it was, and if it was, because the rate of brain tumors, I think, is not right, but a stroke would potentially fit, and I could see that being kind of misinterpreted, especially if you've got a pathologist writing reports and things and it being misunderstood. So that would fit and things. In which case, the treatments would be things like ACE inhibitors, if he's gone into AF, beta blockers as well. If he's in AF, actually you should be anticoagulating with ideally warfarin. They didn't have that at the time because that was developed. Warfarin stands for something like, it's the Wisconsin Agricultural University or College, I think, developed it. So that wasn't developed until post-war. So the most you've got for that is aspirin. It's not great. As a doctor, I would say do not take aspirin if you have atrial fibrillation. you should be on anticoagulation, you know, barring other things going on with you. But it's better than nothing. He would be politely instructed to stop smoking immediately, or more importantly, I would tell Mrs. Henderson that he is stopping smoking now. He would be encouraged to take exercise and to go for nice walks during which he can think about what stuff they're ordering. Yeah, and that way you might keep him alive.
Right, so 9684 ones, if a sea vixen had been built by like the FAW from the start with external fuel tanks, do you think the Iron could have gotten more use out of sea vixens than they did with the original turbine design? It would have been slightly longer range, but would that be more help? Probably not, and not necessarily be an improvement for the role the Vixen was doing. Then next one question. So the USN would have preferred an SBD Dauntless with folding wings. Why was that not designed in from the start? Because have you dealt with the Bureau of Aeronautics? They are occasionally bureaucratic.
And
they
also
can be
adding
rude.
in the complexity of folding wings when you also have all those complex dive brakes in what is fundamentally not a huge aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
The benefit versus the risk of actually nerfing the dive bombing capability, actually, yeah, I'd like it, but I'll accept without. Torpedo bomber, way bigger, definitely needs folding wings. And then last question.
Well, there's one more question coming from Inns, and then that will be the last
Yeah.
question. But the last question from Steve, sort of penultimate question?
Yeah.
As Dan has explained medical services given modern medicine, could Nelson have survived
No.
the bullet which killed him?
No. I have enough friends who are Navy doctors, some of whom specialise in trauma. No, he had unsurvivable injuries. Sadly, he would not have been in as much discomfort, and we could have sorted some of those bits, but he had nasty arterial hemorrhages and the spinal injury and things. It pretty much wasn't survivable, even with modern stuff. I mean, maybe if you got him to Bastion, possibly, but I'm not sure, and I think he probably would have been paralysed from relatively high up as well, because it went through the spine,
Yeah.
and I can't remember the other bit.
He's going to be wheelchair bound even if he does get
Yeah, he's never going to go to sea again, and that's not in one of those, oh, they said I'd never walk again. Wait, that's in a,
You're not walking again, mate.
yeah, not with all the other stuff you've got going on, and also with, yeah,
It's just,
with the trauma of getting it smashed through with, I mean, what is it, 3/4 of an inch musket ball? I mean, that thing's just gonna, I mean, okay, it's not a modern 50 cal, but it's just smashing
the
its
amount
way
of
through.
damage, you have to remember, a musket ball doesn't cut through the body, it smashes its way through the body, so
Yeah.
it causes a massive amount of trauma on the way in and the way out, and it just...
And I think he did have
it's
big
just going to
blood
cause
vessels
all sorts
ruptures.
of damage, and it's not good for your body.
The thing about mortality and stuff from the era of Nelson is, what's interesting is the survival rates from injury were impressively good for the time. I mean, it probably wasn't fun to go through this stuff, but they could actually keep you alive surprisingly well, considering, because actually if you're injuring relatively fit young men,
Yeah.
they can survive an awful lot. These days they can survive even more, and the miracles they were working. I mean, we had trauma kind of mortality calculators, and there are people who, according to those stats, had 0 chance of survival, and Kate has seen people she picked up walking,
Kate Pryor, aren't we?
walking ahead of her to pick up their medals, possibly walking on a prosthesis, but they were walking at Buckingham Palace to collect their medals.
There's some very, very good docks. The British were very lucky in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Medical services generally, and the American PJs as well.
Yeah.
She praised them a lot.
Yeah.
Had a lot of time for them.
Were there any navies that built ships that did not fit their doctrines properly? There were quite a few navies which changed doctrines in the 1920s and 30s, so some of them ended up with ships which no longer fitted their doctrine. It's very rare you have a navy build a ship which actually doesn't fit their doctrine, unless you're talking about the French when the yards just build what they want to build, but sometimes their ships don't fit their doctrine.
Or the Swedes when they built submarines in the early 17th century.
We're not getting into that. That's for calling a ship water just makes it feel that it belongs there. But the whole reality is that usually you build to your doctrine, but then your doctrine can change. And one of the things that happens in the 20s and 30s you have to remember is the speed of naval warfare accelerates dramatically due to the growth of aircraft carriers. And the point I try to make to people is that the aircraft carrier, when you're looking at it in 1920, it's not the aircraft carrier you see in 1939, it's not the aircraft carrier you see in 1945 by any stretch of imagination. And basically, the pace of war and the pace of actions change to fit the reach of the dominant weapon of that period, and that dominant weapon becomes air power because it can reach the furthest. This is the point. A battleship is still the most efficient ship-killing vessel we have ever created and probably will ever create. Is going to be a battleship. But the point is, an aircraft can carry that shell a lot further than the battleship can shoot that shell with the technology available at the time. And that is what bombs are. They're basically shells which are carried by aircraft. And let's be honest, the Japanese take it one step even further, and they just basically adapt the shell to an aircraft. Anyway.
Wait, that just gives me, oh god, the horrific thought. If the Japanese knew about tall boys, they would try and make a gun that would fire one.
And on that thought, let's just say thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone for your support, which has made this trip possible. I have been joined by the two Dans. This one's been quieter than he normally is by a long stretch of imagination.
Yeah, and the other people we really have to thank for our incredibly good mood today have been the Maritiman group, so
M-A-R-I-T.
No, I-M-A-N.
Maritiman.
So go and find them. They are wonderful.
Support them on their website, support them on YouTube, please do, they are lovely. I'm going to give a shout out to the two guys we had today, Lisa and Clara. They are absolutely Clara. They are absolutely lovely.
Trying to say
really helpful.
Yeah.
They were doing their normal guiding duties, going around helping, and they were also running around making sure Drac got where he needed to go, I got where I needed to go, Daniel got where he needed to go, Gareth got where he needed to go. And this is not an easy thing, because you have to remember, we go into a ship and we divide up. So I am down in the bottom of the engine rooms on the Small Island. You were, where were you at one point?
I was all over the place.
You were all over the place. So was Drac. Gareth was going off into all sorts of little boats elsewhere. They were doing so much work, and they did it all with a smile. They were happy to answer questions. Anything they didn't know, they went and found out. They were doing everything brilliantly, and I have to say, it meant for the whole team there. They were all great.
Yeah, and also all the people who came along and who were able to help us with the Swedish and the explanation of things. So two who were really helpful were Michael Carnifors and Christopher Willenfoot.
Yes.
So thank you both.
Thank you them. They were absolutely superstars.
And
they came to dinner with us again this evening.
Yeah, and also they told us about the lovely, lovely place.
The Dine Burger place.
Dine Burger place, which was awesome. I mean, we've had quite a lot of burgers in quite a lot of different places, and these ones were superb. And the milkshakes were also wonderful.
Becoming more and more difficult to avoid as we go on further and further trip is that me and Drac Alex do share one brain when it comes to ordering food.
Oh. Look, it is not fair.
Bit of bread, more meat,
Okay.
no vegetation.
The waitresses, they're mostly female, but you know, the waiting staff, their English will be perfect. This is Sweden, or it was Norway. Their English is perfect. But saying to them, no foliage
No salad.
in your
is it?
burger is just complicating things. Be nicer.
No
Stop
salad,
being
vegetables,
clever.
No salad. No salad. I don't want the onions, and the easiest way to say no onions is to say no salad.
They won't kill you.
You don't know that. I don't want to try
Although
out.
we were looking at some of the menu options, and then we were looking at the very crap conditions on, particularly it was the submarine and the little patrol torpedo
Yes,
boat.
in nicest way, I do not think the dietary options and that torpedo boat and definitely not that submarine were a good option.
No,
That's
their oxygen supplies would not last. Those kind of those air scrubbers, you
They're
can
not
overwork
fit for that.
them.
They're not in any way fitted for that.
No. Yeah, thank you everyone. We do need to go to bed because
Dan,
we're
is hot and cold the best recovery method after exercise?
You always seem to have a shower after exercise, like me.
Yeah, so actually, so if you mean kind of injury and things, so cold is good because it reduces inflammation and things. So this is after if you give yourself a soft tissue injury or something. Cold is good for the first couple of days because it will help to reduce swelling and inflammation. After that, it's temperature difference, which can help to provide pain relief without needing drugs at all or anything like that. And then you can have either hot or cold and it doesn't make any difference. Some people seem to like the cold water bath dunking things, but I have to say I wouldn't because that just seems like torture. Happy with the videos of attractive female people doing it, but yeah, I'm not going to.
I'm worried about you sometimes. I will say though, I do
Rosie
agree.
hates soup on Instagram.
Okay. Steve Clarke, I agree. I don't eat my food's food. I have told them to stop competing my food's food. I like my food being well fed. And Colin Cameron, give the rabbit food to the medical personnel. They do eat it for me. Tonight I got given a mixture
But don't worry,
of
'cause
fries and
we-
sweet potato fries.
We
and
have found
very kindly the Dans took it.
we have found there is a vegetarian place nearby, closer than the burger places. So guess where we're going tomorrow for food?
I'll
I
kill
thought we were
you.
doing sushi. Which goes
No.
back to Thanksgiving.
Yes.
No, it's the veggie place. Yeah.
I'm sure I can find McDonald's. Thank you, Yickers. Thank you, everyone who's been supporting us. Thank you, everyone who's been supporting the channel. Thank you to everyone who's liking, sharing, subscribing, all that stuff. But thank you to everyone who's on ShipShape and doing all that stuff. I would
And-
normally read through all the chat and say thank you to everyone individually, but the battery is literally dying.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Thank you, everyone, for taking part. And thank you especially to Runan, Steve, Clarke, and all the others who've been doing the transferring the questions across. You really do us a massive favour because it's far easier to read from that side of the screen than read from there. Thank you to everyone who's been here. Paul Amos, everyone who's been here. Tanith, Steve, Leslie Mitchell, everyone. Thank you, John Shea. Thank you, all of you. And I'm going to get up there and finish this on the phone before the phone dies. And that is going to go
Bye bye.
slowly.